everyone. Welcome to the Nordway live session. We have come to you on a lovely Sunday afternoon, bringing to you yet another interesting, thought-provoking topic. We and my team were discussing about, what we should be talking about, and we were browsing and brainstorming through different topics. And every time we come to you, we want it to be something thought-provoking, something that is worth, thinking about, giving, some kind of reflection to. So the topic that we have today with us is the importance of having and setting boundaries in your life, and how does that impact your life? How do you go about doing it? Are you struggling with setting boundaries in your life? If you've done so, has it given you your power back? Do you feel empowered? Do you feel more anchored in your life? So what is it, the importance of boundaries? And so let's talk about it, amongst ourselves, and let's share our views with our viewers, because this is a very, very, I think it's a very strong kind of definition that one creates in their life. So Hamza and Misha, both of you, what is the importance of creating boundaries? And first of all, please share with me what your views are on boundaries. You know, like when I say that we create boundaries in our lives, of course it involves every aspect and every element of our lives. But what are boundaries? What is a boundary, Dr. Hamza?
Every human brings with them a sense of space, their own personal space, which is
Yeah.
important to acknowledge. And we acknowledge how does it get acknowledged is when you decide to, actually bear in mind a physical boundary around you. And you have to set one similarly for your own personal space. So for me, boundary is like define a definition of that, the extent of that space that you have, and where
Yeah.
does it go, how far does it go, how close does it come. That to me is a sense of boundary.
Okay.
That's
Absolutely agreed. And Misha, what is your
so.
definition of boundary?
The definition of boundary is like it's good for everyone because when you set a boundary, that then you create a space around yourself. When you create a space around yourself, you are letting other people know that these are the circumstances that are okay for you, and these are the circumstances that are not okay for you.
Yes.
So boundaries helps to save the time and energy to focus on the pursuits that adds value to our life. So because most of the time we don't know that what are our boundaries because we don't know ourselves. So it makes you more self-aware, it gives you more power, and it just gets you on the road to follow your dream or
Freedom,
make the best out of
liberation.
your life. Yeah.
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 So
Yes, absolutely agreed. Boundaries is, in fact, like you both said it. Boundaries is setting up a space within your life, in every whatever aspect of your life is, where you are basically defining for yourself. I think the most important thing, that when you set a boundary, it's not for others, it's for yourself, because that's a relationship that you have yourself, where you start having parameters and boundaries comes in at that point, and you tell yourself that, you know what, this is my boundary. And boundary essentially is, how comfortable am I going further than this boundary? Because when you draw a boundary, you tell yourself, this is where I in fact will not, right? So we kind of bring in that, um, I don't know if it's a power word, but when you put in a boundary, I think no is pretty powerful. And sometimes a boundary is set just for yourself, and you tell yourself that no, this is my limit. This is as far as I will go in this situation, in this aspect, in this relationship, in this circumstance, and this is it. This is my boundary, and then you do not sort of trespass or cross it. And like Misha said, it sets up a very healthy space. And you have said it sets up a healthy space. It gives you freedom, although you're kind of drawing a boundary. But ironically, and uh, sort of contradicting way, it kind of sets up that power space as well, because then others and you yourself know that this is as far as you're going to go or take in a relationship, in your professional lives, put in, invest. So when we talk about boundaries and setting up boundaries, like I said, the word no quite often comes in. And unlike a lot of situations where we talk about giving and where we talk about sharing and where we talk about, yes, yes, we accept, this is kind of the opposite situation. This is uh, when you say no in relationship to boundaries, it's kind of taking your power back. Am I right or wrong? Would you girls agree?
You are
No,
absolutely right. Like this is something that one should think upon, because you have said like the power, you have used the word power with the word no,
Yes,
because that's because no itself is a definition, it's a complete
yes,
sentence.
yes, yes.
So that's why this is what my thoughts are, and that's why you're right. So what do you, Dr. Hafsa, what are your thoughts on it?
I think no is a very, very important word. We, in our primary years, we always learn to say a lot of yes. We learn to
Yes.
agree, we learn to obey. By and large, a few years ago, when I was exploring my priorities and setting my limits and trying to, get my act together in a lot of things, I realized that saying no to certain things and
Yes.
saying yes to certain things has a balance to it. If I say yes to some things at work, I might have to say no to some things at home. So, in
Absolutely.
order to strike a balance in your life, understanding how much of a yes you can say and how much of a no you can say is a very important thing. At the same time, I read up somewhere, and this is a very important thing. I read up somewhere that as you grow along in life, you need to start understanding that part of being an adult is learning how to make difficult conversations. It's no longer
Yes.
about what's my favorite this and what's my favorite that. It's
Yep.
about, hey, can I have, I need to talk
Good
to you about
food.
my parents. I need to
Yes.
talk to you about what I can't do. I need to talk about how we need to change routines around here. So
Yep.
part of growing up as an adult means you need to get into the habit of making adult difficult conversations. And a lot of
Mhm.
times that starts off with saying no, and it's
Yes.
very essential because everybody loves an agreeable person. Sometimes that's all our relationships are based on, but the
Yes. That's a
strength
good
of a
point. We're going to
relationship,
take that up later. Agreeable person. Remind me.
exactly. So the strength of a relationship is tested when you can't agree to everything and you're still more lovable and acceptable as a person who can say no. But I'm sorry, this is my time to wake up. If I decide to, do something that you've levied onto me, I
Hmm.
might have to compromise on a mental space later, which is
Yes.
going to affect the both of us, or in particular me. So I think these are difficult conversations, but as an adult, you need to get into the habit of making constant difficult conversations.
Hamza, that
Okay,
is so profoundly said, and that is so,
very
brilliantly
nice.
put in. And
Add,
agreed. Yes, Misha.
adding to that, these days I've been reading Dare to Lead by Brene Brown, and
Yes.
in that she
I
just
love
quoted
Brenda
some,
Brown. Yes.
yeah, and she just quoted that clear is kind, unclear is unkind.
Yes.
So this was a very powerful quote, that because if you're not clear, if you're not clear about what are the things you want, and these are the things you don't want, that's what
Yes.
defines boundaries, and that's how you can lead in life.
Absolutely.
So
And clarity, clarity is so crucial. And the opposite of clarity, which is confusion, it leads
yeah,
to chaos. And I think boundaries are very closely linked to getting that more clarity, that getting rid of that confusion, that chaos, and kind of setting yourself in a more calmer and more kind of healthier space. So I agree.
Absolutely.
You're right. I'm sorry, but like, can you guys hear me? Like, is my because I'm struggling with my internet connection, but you guys can
yes,
hear me,
yes,
We can hear
yes,
you fine. We can hear you fine.
right? Okay.
yes,
So,
yes.
Hamza, you brought up a really, powerful point over there, and that's something that I agree with 100%. But that is an interesting conversation to have, and I want to, take it from there again. So you said, everybody loves an agreeable person, and quite often, you find that even in your, in job interviews, right? You have, sometimes it comes up that how would you define yourself? Would you define yourself as an agreeable person, as a somebody who's easy to get along with? You get right. You get interviewed, and even in those like questionnaires, you're asked that, and even in personal life, you'll find that as you are, especially when we're in our childhood and as children, we are taught that say yes, be appeasing, be pleasing, be agreeable, be obliging, and especially culturally, I think it's a norm. Like children should be, but agreeable. They should listen. Of course, they should listen to their elders and their parents. And this is also one part that in my article, I wrote about conscious parent, where I talked about, because that's a whole concept that's come up by these amazing psychologists. That but children should be told. What you said about prioritizing and setting boundaries. Even children should be taught that you're not necessarily a wonderful person if you're agreeable. You know, being agreeable does not make you more lovable or more wonderful. And that does not mean that we're talking about, hey, set up boundaries and say no to everything, like you said, but like have those difficult conversations. And if you're going to have those difficult conversations, then you have to be emotionally and psychologically equipped with those tools, with those faculties to, say no in difficult conversations and not be agreeable, not be obliging, and take your power back and give yourself. Because sometimes, in fact, a lot of times in life, you need to prioritize yourself. So, what do you guys have to say about that? When it comes to defining boundaries, creating boundaries in your life, how does it set up your priorities? Like, where does it take your priorities?
I think generating a priority list does come from the idea of what you can say yes to and what you can't say no to. I remember back in my student life, and I was always a very ambitious person. So in my student life, when there was a lot of social activity going around. There are a lot of people hanging out to cafes and trying to explore the university life. I could not say yes to every one of them. So I remember clearly, and here's where I would bring in again. I think as non-way team, we'd be endorsing journaling off and on. So journal it out. So this is what I
We
did.
endorse it throughout,
We
I think,
throughout
because
journal,
journaling,
journal
we
it out.
brought it up again and again. The journal, journal, journal. Yeah.
Exactly. So I remember sitting down and journaling and realizing, what are my priorities? Who matters the most? When I'm presented with commitments, what can I say yes to, and how much of a yes I can say to? Where
Mhm.
do I say no? So there's what comes. So I remember clearly writing down that I'm going to put myself first. I'm going to put my family first, and this friend matters more. Then
Mhm.
that friend matters more. So let's say okay, there are 3 outings in a weekend. Which one do I say yes to? Which one
Yeah.
I can skip out? And are these relations good enough where I can skip it all together and probably focus on the task that I need to get at hand because I need to turn that assignment in. So I think that was of the most important I would say, happening in that particular area of my life, that I generated a priority list. So when you start telling yourself who I can say no to and where I can say no to, you automatically start generating a priority list in your life. And it is extremely essential to have one and have that kind of clarity because there are times you're going to forget that, I probably committed something to my parents a couple of days ago, and here's some other friend asking us to say something, and you'll be like, oh no, I don't think I want to do this again. But you need to know where you're going to miss out on the on the real opportunity there. Maybe that was a real opportunity for you to bond with your mom, and you missed that out, or that was a real opportunity for you to seek a career choice, a better career choice. So you could have negotiated that commitment with your mom a bit. Okay, listen up. I think 5 years down the line, you're going to be proud of me doing this. How about we set this up for the next weekend? So trying to seek that balance in life, it comes with the art of negotiation and the art of saying no.
The art of saying no. Misha, I want to ask you this. It's not an easy art. And, I can at least speak for
Yes.
myself. I can't speak for everybody, and I cannot speak for you too. I would like you to speak for yourselves. But if I have to speak for myself, the art of no, and I love the way you put it, Hafza, so beautifully and so sort of profoundly, art of saying no. It is truly an art because, like I said, you are not raised and conditioned in a society, in our societies, in our homes, when you are with your parents. I mean, that's a reality to say no. We are raised and we are brought up and we are conditioned to say yes, to make everybody happy. And I can say for myself that for a very long time, I had truly believed that prioritizing other people, not just other people, but other people's feelings, other people's opinions, opinions. Now again, other people's opinions, they make a huge difference to our self-esteem, mostly, right? What others have to say about us. So, prioritizing other people's feelings, other people's opinions, what are they going to think of me, um, other people's preferences, was very important to me. And I always thought for a very long time, and this is before I actually would say that I set on that journey where I kind of, uh, you know, realized, had a moment of self realization, and I had that a flip, and I had that sort of, how you say,
Yeah.
awakening of some sort, where I said,
Yeah.
no, not all of this is wrong, right? And that's where I started bringing in fortifying my boundaries. But before that, I always thought that is how I'm good. I drew my sense of self worth and self esteem, and whether I'm good enough or not, by how happy I'm making others feel and how happy they are. So, for instance, if my parents were happy with me, I would be happy with myself, even though, and I want to start from parents because that's the first intimate relationship in our lives that we have. When you talk about intimacy, it's often misperceived and it's
Yeah.
misunderstood because intimacy is not as, you know, it doesn't, intimacy is not a relationship that only a man and a woman or romantic partners in that sense share. Intimacy basically means some people who are very closely personally linked. So the first
Yeah.
intimate relationship you do have actually is with your parents. And I always even if I was feeling bad, even if I thought I didn't get to do the thing that I had to do, even if I, for a very long time, but my sense of self-worth and self-esteem was coming from the external, from the outside, from making my parents happy. So if my friends were happy with me, I was struggling to be happy. I was telling myself, okay, I should be happy. Then when my kids were happy, if your partner is happy, but when you're doing that, when you're sticking to that formula in life, when you're sticking to that recipe that you are, in one of our shows, we've talked about how we're handed like these prescribed recipes in life as children. And usually you find that, especially the three of us now, we've realized that most of that prescriptions that we were handed to were wrong, right? They work
Yeah.
the other way around. So I started realizing that no, this is not working because they may be happy, but I'm not. And how do you balance it? And that's where I understood the importance of boundaries. And that's what I really uh, started believing, and I started making boundaries. And what it did was, it was like a storm. It was like a revolutionary relationship, the beginning of this revolutionary, uh, you know, uh, chemistry that I started having with whatever relations were there. So my parents, they were blown off by that change. My children, my friends, but I found myself in a very synchronized, healthy space where I, who's inside me, was happy with what's happening outside me, right? So, have you had experiences like that as well, where you found that when you where you had that transition from not realizing that boundaries are, in fact, even a necessity, to having boundaries, to having that realization, and then how it's affected your kind of journey and your relationships, so share with me. I'll ask you that first.
Okay, Dr. Stella, that you have beautifully explained like each and every point you have touched each and every point that viewers were asking.
Yeah.
So, but let me share my experience. For quite a long time, I've been a people pleaser, and I want everyone to be happy with me. Whoever is going to meet me, I wanted to have an impression like they should put my name in their good books, and
Yeah.
for a very long time I didn't know that what I was capable of, what are the things that I like and dislike. I didn't know about myself. And then when it really hit me hard last or like 2 years back, then that if I'm taking all the work, I'm saying yes to everyone, then I have no time for myself. Then it really took an awakening. The tools I used were for that was mindfulness and meditation, to to be very mindful that these are the situations that are putting me in a different mode, that I'm not being able to do the best of myself. I'm not being good at this. But when I started no
Yes.
to certain things, I felt at peace. I was
Mhm.
able to tolerate the reactions of others who were in the quieter tone that, oh, she will, yes, whenever we'll ask her, she will say yes. So
Yeah, and that
that,
would be a blow to them, right? That would be a shock,
yes,
you know. It's,
yes,
how can
yes.
she say
And
no?
yes, and then I learned how to tolerate their reactions. For the first initial months, they were blown off. They were not talking, and then after that, I've made peace with myself that I don't like everyone. Then why should everyone like me?
Absolutely.
So, so
Well done,
that,
you. Well done,
yes,
high five, girl.
yeah, yeah.
You're getting your
So,
power back.
and why
And
should
I love
anyone
that
like?
how she said it. I don't like everyone, so why should everybody like me? I want to stop at that. Sorry, I want to stop you at that because that is a power sentence you just said, right? That's like a
Yeah,
power, statement you just made. I don't like everyone, and that is the truth. That is the reality, guys. Like, it's impossible that you like everybody, and it's impossible that everybody in your life is going to like you, right? So,
mm,
what to do, Hafza, Dr. Hafza?
Yeah,
I'll
I
uh,
think
pass the
Misha
ball to you.
Misha stated it so well, simply and well, that
Yeah.
getting rid of that need for approval from others is what she conquered. And that is exactly where it starts. When you decide to tell yourself that I'm not living here for everybody's approval. I first and foremost, I work for my own approval.
Hmm.
And that's important. For me, that journey happened exactly at parents, I would say, because somewhere I was since I'm the eldest, and as the eldest, we
Yeah.
struggle a lot with,
I relate to that because I'm the eldest.
model child who's doing everything right. Because we're very closely in touch with our parents as compared to
And
our
it's
other
not just
siblings.
doing everything right. It's because you are expected to do everything right
You're
because you're
expected to
constantly
do
told
yes,
everything right.
that.
You're expected to live up to their approvals. They have these dreams, and you kind of there comes a moment of awakening. You realize that hello, I am first and foremost living for myself. So for me, that I've always been seen as a parent figure somewhere in my home, a caretaker or the sort, and it was and I think elder siblings are invisible caretakers to some extent because they're not exactly parents, but they're still doing some bit of parenting around. So
Yes,
you need there's a lot of pressure on you. So the
a lot
idea
of
of me trying to set a boundary for myself that listen up, this is my time to study, this is my time to relax, this is where I don't have to share details of my finances here, this is what I need to do, me as a person. That was something that took a lot of self conversation and then gradually trying to make difficult conversations again and again and again. One thing that really helped me was knowing exactly what stage in life other people around the world were at. Because as Desi people, we tend to, since we live with our parents, we are classically, we grow up as children, and that's not a healthy thing, you know. It takes
And I'm going
marriage.
to just add, sorry to stop you, but they see children, right? And we grow up, we live a long time with our parents. And you said we're classically,
Exactly.
I think it's a fundamental, and that is a fundamental problem that I think like
It's a
for a long,
fundamental.
as even when you become an adult, you are thinking like a child.
Exactly, because you're still so dependent on them for a lot of things that
Yeah.
it takes things like big life events like marriage or starting businesses to be able to set your space as an adult in that same household. Suddenly, let's say for example, I think this is a common struggle with the gentlemen in our society a lot. Uh, Sadly, they have to go through life with a lot of dependency, and when they once they land up with this big role of being the caretakers of their own family, they miserably fail at it a lot of times because of the
Yes.
fact that they're not used to making difficult conversations. The only difficult, it's never difficult, number one, for them to say, okay, I can't do this, can't do that, I'll deal with it later, and that's still okay. But they're not used to making conversations, they're not used to giving themselves a lot. So when it comes to being handed over the responsibility of a household, they struggle the most with it because there's a lot of clash of expectations, being agreeable, then being independent, then a lot of other things. So that's a lot of problem. At the same time, as girls, we struggle too because here we were living with our parental approval all our lives, and now we have to move on to another house, and we need to identify ourselves as individuals. A lot of girls keep I would say they bank on their family's opinions for how to deal with their life constantly, which is not, again, a healthy thing either. They're very, they're not self aware enough to see what they're doing, what they're not doing, because they were constantly living through other people's eyes. Now they're trying to
Yeah,
live through other people's lives again, and these are not the same eyes.
yeah.
So creates a crazy conundrum here. And
It's a chaotic one. It's a chaotic dilemma. I just
it's
want
a
to add
lot
to
of
that because
dilemma.
I was listening to you, and you know, like you've kind of given a picture of the male aspect of this dependency on obligation and being obliging towards parents and towards the society. And then, of course, you've talked about the female aspect of dependency. And I really call it dependency because you're so right. And I don't know because I mean, I've grown up in the society in the East, right? So we can speak for ourselves. But yes, like what you just talked about, it's an issue. I think this is
The
something that really
saddest
needs to
thing is,
be
you know
talked.
what the saddest thing is? I've seen girls
Yeah.
call up their mums at the age of 40 and ask them, what jewelry am I supposed to wear today? And here you are raising teenagers and adults, and you still need to go call up your mom and ask her what jewelry you need to wear today. How should I do this? How should the idea of us as adults, as independent decision makers, is something we need to start endorsing now. And for
Can
me, that
I tell
happened
you?
when yeah, for me that
Uh,
happened when I started looking at
yeah,
other people in other countries. You know what they're doing, how far independent are they, what decisions are they taking about their finances. So for me,
yeah.
it was important to be that strong of a person inside too. So I think that's how it kicked off for me there. Sorry, you were saying something.
No, I think whatever you said, I mean, you raised some really strong and
Exactly.
real. You really touched upon some harsh realities, of our society, and it's not just of society, of individuals, right? And when you were talking about those individuals, I could relate to it myself personally because when I talked about, you know, when I had to break free of uh, that I would say it was like an existence of mine, where my existence was really just about. I remember not even thinking for myself, literally. Like the way I think now is more like I'll sit with myself and I will think, okay, this is, and I'm now referring to problems, and because when you're in a good situation, it's easy to deal with it. So, but when you're in a difficult situation, when you're faced by a challenge or a problem, like how I would think about it now is that I would sit with myself and I would say, okay, how do I feel about this? How does this make me feel? What impact does it have on me? But I can promise you that not long ago, there was a time I don't remember ever even putting myself in my head. Like when I was having all the thinking and the thought processes, me, it wasn't there in my thoughts. I never thought of how would it make me feel. It was always like, how would my parents think about this? Oh my God, holy cow. What is my mother going to say? What is my father going to say? Oh my God, what are like my friends going to say? Oh my God, what are my parents' friends going to think? Oh my God, what are my like relatives going to think? Oh my God, I can't do this. I mean, I instantly would just freeze and block off that resistance to prioritize myself or do whatever it is that I knew that I had to do and not do it. And then what happens? What happens is that you end up feeling that sense of self-worth and self-esteem and that feeling of you're good enough that you're trying to get from other people, no matter how much you've made other people happy and they even put you on a pedestal, the inside of you is not feeling it. Your sense of self worth doesn't get redeemed or it doesn't get enhanced. You still feel low. Don't you agree? Unless you have done what it is that you, in your consciousness, in your heart, in your mind, believed was the right thing to do. So when it comes to marriages, now I want to talk about that because you raised it, and I think like this is a good opportunity to bring it. And I wouldn't narrow it to our society. I would want to narrow it universally, right? For everyone in relationships. Because I know that it's a problem in the West. I know that around the world, people are children. I have children, and I find myself quite often doing that, telling them, "Well, I'm your mother. You have to make me happy," right? But because maybe I hope I am a little bit aware of oh my God, I go in my room an hour later and I just think about what I said. And it wouldn't be at that point when I'm interacting with my children, I kind of rectify myself. It would be an hour later or a day later. But at least I think, oh my God, I said to my child, I'm your
Yeah,
mother. That's why. Children ask you why because they're very naive. And it's a beautiful age because they are curious and they ask you why to everything. And quite often you get frustrated and you go like, uh, well, because I said so, because I'm your mother, because whatever I say, that's how it is. Why? Well, I can't explain to you right now, right? That is so
yeah,
wrong. That is not how. That's what happened with us. I think in our generation, and
And
maybe,
still is happening with us.
and it's happening with us even now, and it's a universal phenomenon. It's not going to be easy to break out of it. But what's good is that we are having the Norway is having a conversation about this. I'm sure many other people are definitely having conversations. The reason that I'm thinking and talking, like when you talked about reading, I started reading. How did I come to that realization that no, somewhere along in this universe, I perhaps am the most important person and I should be. Because if I'm not happy, if I'm not healthy, how do I make all these other people who are dependent on me happy and healthy? It's just not possible.
absolutely,
It doesn't work the other
absolutely.
way around. It's whatever has been told to me that if you make X, Y, Z happy, healthy, content, then you will become happy. That is wrong. That is the wrong cycle. The chain actually is that, and that's what we talk about self love. And the other day, my own daughter was when I was explaining this concept to her, she said, "Well, that sounds selfish," you know. And I was like so affected. I said, "No, that's exactly what I thought. Please don't think like that." And she's only 10. And I sat down with her for an hour and I said, "Look, that's what I thought my entire life. That self love is selfishness." And I was actually perhaps told that. I was communicated in a very strong way by my own parents in the society. If you love yourself, you're selfish. And I think it's very true for women because we're the nurturing as gender. Like we're going to be we're the moms, or when we were children, girls are the future mothers, they're the future wives, they're the future daughter-in-laws. So it's very easy to condition them. Hey, you have to get married one day. You're going to be a mother. You have to make other people happy. What are you going to do? How can you be so selfish, right? This was, I mean, at least communicated to me, not with malintentions by my parents. My parents love me. They invest in me. They raise me wonderfully. There are some amazing values that I've inherited from them. And, I couldn't have asked for better parents. But inadvertently, that's the way the society works. This was communicated to me that self love is selfish. But it's not. And I want you two to make that distinction right now because I think self love, how is it actually selfless? Please do talk about that. And secondly, it's so closely linked to that next step, which is instantly you make boundaries. When you realize there is a thing as self love, I have to love myself first. I think instantly you set up on a path where you find yourself making boundaries. So please do both of you, you know,
Can I, because when you raise the point, self-love, self-compassion is very important because you can't pour from an empty cup. So
That's
your cup
exactly
has
what I
to
was
be
going to.
full.
That's
So your
exactly.
cup has to.
oh,
Sorry.
I'm loving how like
And
Yeah.
you know that
Yeah.
cup that you're talking about, Misha,
that you
here.
can't pour from
Your
this.
boundaries are that cup
Yes.
holding you.
Yeah.
Then when it's full, when your boundaries are protecting you, they're filled with you, is when you can pour it out to others. So that cup of love, that's your boundaries.
Yeah. And previously,
Amisha, like, because you see, like, it really jolted me when my own daughter, who's only 10, said to me, because, I wrote that in my article about self love, and she said, "Well, it sounds selfish." And it scared me because I don't want my children to think self love is selfish. And I will work hard, and obviously they're kids, but haven't we for a very long time thought that actually self love is selfish? And you want
yes.
to make that distinction, that absolute disparity between the two, that absolute contradiction in the two. They're not the same. In fact, they're the opposite. So make that statement very obvious for our viewers.
Okay.
Well,
So Okay, yeah, Dr. Hamza, you
No, no,
go
I think
first.
Mishra, you had a brainwave going on. Carry on,
Yeah.
please.
So you
No,
start
no.
from the point where you said very beautifully, you can't pour from an empty cup. Yes.
Yes,
Share the
because when you don't know that what's going inside you and what is causing you to act selfishly with the other person, is just because you haven't taken care of yourself. Initially initially I was just like penalizing myself. Why did I take a day off from work? Why? Like,
Yes.
why did I do that? And I've like, in order to incorporate and make myself accountable for being self compassionate and be
Yes.
more self loving, I just um started taking day off and starting treating myself, taking myself to whatever I felt the best by writing those things in my planner, that what makes me happy. Because eventually, if you cannot start taking care of yourself, is just another version to understand your personality, and that's how you grow, and
Yes.
that's how you keep the power within you.
Mhm.
So that's how I can explain it better.
Yes, very well said. You can keep the power within you. And Hamza, please do make that, distinction, because I feel it's a very strong, powerful, yet very easily misperceived distinction.
You
What is
mentioned
the difference
something.
between self-love and selfishness? Because it is not selfish.
It's not at
Like
all.
that
It's
we
not
have
at
been
all.
to think by our society, by our systems, by in our childhood, that self-love is selfish. You have to put others before you, and of course that's important. But please, make that de- define it, make the difference, like define the difference between the two.
Well, I think it applies to every gender over here. Classically, mothers in terms of nurturing and forgiving, I think it applies to the men in our society as well. A lot of
Yep.
times, I remember making when my own, I wasn't much of a progressive person. There was a time when I wasn't much of a progressive person myself, and I used to think in boxes and pretty much in the gender roles that our society does think in. There was a time I kept telling my brother, you need to man up. If you're not doing this right now, how will you give it to your family? So I wouldn't say it's just for us girls who are constantly pushed that, you need to be giving for others. I think men
Mhm.
in their own capacity, because people are trying to enforce your own agenda onto you, whether you're a man, whether you're a woman, they constantly keep telling you, according to your own sense of role that they've decided for you in the society, that you need to do this for others. You need to do this for others. Men are not encouraged to spend on themselves. What are you doing? Why are you into so much fashion? That's all for girls. They like to spend. They love colors. You constantly tell them. You suppress them in their own little manner too. But the thing is that self love is extremely essential because you love in it. First things first, you need to teach a young child what love is. When you teach them what love is when they'll be able to distinguish it from selfishness and
Yes,
lack
and there is
of
a very fine line between the
Very fine
selfishness
line.
and
Yes.
loving yourself. That's a
Exactly.
very fine
When you
line.
when
Very
you
fine
define them,
line.
you need to explain it to the younger generation that love, number one, is not a bad thing ever. It cannot be a negative connotation as such. And when you fill yourself with everything kind, is when you'll be able to pour out everything kind externally
Exactly.
as well. So I think that is an essential thing.
And self love. So, because our topic isn't self love, but it came up because I believe that it's very closely linked. And if you find that key, I wrote in my article, because when I was writing, literally when I was thinking about it, because that's what happened to me, and I can only say from my experience, because I feel like in my journey of struggling to find myself and really understand myself, like Misha said, that how will you, if you're constantly catering to other people's feelings, psyche, needs, emotions, anger, whatever it is, how will you ever find the space and the time in your existence, in your life, to understand yourself and cater to yourself? And
Yeah.
quite often we all find, and like you said, Hafza, it's not gender restricted. It's not only that women are suppressed in that way. It's a worldwide universal phenomenon. That's the way we've been raised, men and women, culturally, societally, universally, please others.
Yeah.
But as soon as you find that key and you say, okay, hold on a second, I need to look after myself, I need to understand myself, I need to make myself happy as well, there comes the boundaries. So coming to our topic, how does that work? Like, because quite often, when you say no to people, and especially, it's very easy to say no to distant people who are distantly related to you in your life, right? Who are not so close to you. You can say no to them. The hardest thing to do is to say no to people who expect a yes the most from you, and those are the intimate relations in your life. Those are the close relationships in your. Those are your parents. Those are your children. Those are your partners. Those are your husbands, your wives, your siblings, and your work. So, what happens there?
There are two things that happen there. First things first, see if there's an opportunity for a conversation, sitting down and making it happen. If that works, well and good, you've got your point across, you've set a boundary there, you've invested some time in, and you've declared a boundary that, what, I don't think I'll be able to do it. I hope you understand.
Yep.
How they react to it, number one, is not your responsibility, and it's not something that you need to take into your hands. There are times that there are certain, unfortunately, sometimes people have very toxic parents who just don't get it. And some that's a very normal thing in the society too. Toxic parenting is a whole other topic as well. We
Yeah.
might
And
be
it's
able
not
to
just
address that
toxic
later.
parents, toxic partners, toxic friends, toxic bosses,
Exactly. Some people
toxic
do not understand
people.
your the fact
Those
that they
people,
don't understand your no is not your
yeah,
responsibility. You've set
Yes.
your
Yes.
boundary. You made that investment.
Exactly.
If they're not, then you do not look for their approval and you go about your life understanding your boundary yourself and go ahead with your plans the way you should. Eventually, it's going to be for the best and
Yeah.
for the better of everybody out there.
it's just that Dr. Hafsa said it's how assertive you are in communicating that yes, this I can tolerate and this I cannot, and eventually in the long run you will earn their respect. So because they will see you growing and getting the success and all that, because initially we don't like people who are only saying yes. We
Yes.
like people who have boundaries.
You
It's
respect
human
those people
psychology.
more. Yeah.
Yeah,
You may not like
because
them, but
we don't.
yes, but
It's
inadvertently, I think you start respecting them more, right?
yes, because in the long run, we only respect those people who are high achievers and who have their boundaries. And it's just human psychology. We don't like someone who can always say yes. So if we correlate to that, and being that that person is not difficult. It's just that you have to put your foot down and you have to be strong enough.
Nisha, while you were saying
I
that,
mean, as much
the
as
reason that I laughed is I want to add that um I agree with you, but I also over here I want to disagree with you because I trust me, there are so many people who will love or who will at least pretend to love you for always saying yes. And I know that for a fact because I have experienced it. I've seen people do that. I mean, there is, for and why is that the case? That you're you and that's where you have to make the distinction because what I was talking about, how we are conditioned and communicated to be agreeable is because we are communicated and we are told that look, if you say yes, you will be loved and liked and adjust better, right? And that sense of approval comes in, but you don't get respected. There is that difference that you might get loved, you might get adored for it, you might get patted on the back, but you will never get respected for it. Having said that, we don't want to, since we're coming to the end of our session, we don't want to, push for say no. Only that's how you're gonna get it. Like let's have that balancing ending. Can you guys hear me? Sorry, because I feel like my internet connection is.
it's slightly disruptive, but we can hear you fine.
Yeah,
We
I
can
feel
hear
like
you.
I'm sorry about that. It's just a Sunday morning. So, but in the end, I want us to come on that ground, where we want to balance out because the message we're trying to give is that as important as it is to have a, I think I lost you guys. Okay, can one of you, sorry, because my internet connection is getting weak, I want you to kind of wrap it up because I don't want I mean, we want to tell people that it's important to have boundaries because it's for yourself more than anybody else. But both of you, I want your ending kind of statements and ending thoughts to end on this. That the message we're not giving, where we're giving is not that, well, if you only say no and if you have lots of boundaries and if
Yes.
you only like kind of think of yourself, only then you'll get loved and respected. You have to strike that balance because in life, in situations, of course, you have to prefer your loved ones. Of course, sometimes you have to choose other people over yourself, and that is also part of self love. Like you said, it's love basically, it's not self-love.
Absolutely, absolutely. Given there's a little connection disruption here,
Ending
yeah.
thoughts, your thoughts to end on the session.
I would just say that life is all about commitments, and we'll have a lot of them. You'll have to say yes to some of them, and to in order for you to go ahead with those commitments, you might have to say no to certain things. If you're supposed to go ahead with a very important meeting in your life, you might have to say no to a certain lunch. So see, there's the balance there. You have to say yes to something. You have to say no to something, but
Yes.
you should be able to comfortably say yes or no either ways. They both go hand in hand, and in boundaries is exactly where you decide you can't agree to everything, and that's an important thing to practice. The one way you can learn how to say it a little more gracefully, in a a little more, as Misha mentioned, assertively, is by practicing it. There might be times you might stumble. There might be times you might come off as a little not acceptable, but by and large, the more you do it, as with any act, the more comfortable, the more better you will become at handling the no aspect of boundaries, and be able to say that, listen up, I cannot do this, or how about we do it this way, or coming up with third alternatives that I do agree to this, but I can't agree to this right now. So these things are things that you need to keep practicing, and the more you do it, the better you'll get at it.
So it's just the
I like
consistency that,
that.
yeah, it's just the consistency that you need to incorporate in your daily lives. And with this, I just want to end with this quote that boundaries aren't just good for you, it's good for everyone. So there is a
Yeah.
balance, that and moderation is the key. So this is what our topic was about, everyone. So thank you for joining us. And if we missed your question, our team is going to answer all your questions in the comments. Hope we have answered all your queries. With that, we are signing off. Have a very grateful, happy Sunday, and we'll see you next week. So, Dr. Hafsa and Dr. Sana,
Bye bye.
Have a great
bye.
weekend. Have a
Have
Yes.
a
great
great
Thank you for
weekend.
joining us. We'll see
And
you next.
okay, bye.
bye.